Well, it's 12:01. I think we might kick off now. The others will join us. So those of you that are punctual and on time, we don't want to keep you all waiting. And I know we're all busy, which is really part of what this is all about. So welcome to one of our quarterly Business Booster events, Automate, Eliminate and Delegate. And if you're having staff troubles, the eliminate is not talking about getting rid of staff like that. We do these sessions quarterly. Why do we do them? Because one of our values is education. We do this to help our clients grow and develop their business. And this is one way which we can do that. We also do this because we want to be authentic in what we do here. And this topic, I suppose, is close to our hearts. Automate, eliminate, and delegate. We actually have had posters in our office for, I don't know, it must be 3 or 4 years at least. And it's part of our DNA and what we do in our business. But every time that we look at a task, we think, is there a better way to do it? Can we improve on it? So before we get into that, I'll just duck into a little bit of housekeeping. So everyone's microphones have been turned off. We do want this to be as interactive as possible. So if you have a question, either electronically raise your hand or pop a question as chat, and Natasha will prompt you in, and you can turn your mic on. That just keeps any background noises out of the way. Speaking today will be myself, Chris and Dale, are 3 partners, and on behalf of them and the rest of the Advivo team, I welcome you here today. We were to have a guest speaker, Jane McLeod, who's quite experienced in this area, particularly from a technology point of view. Unfortunately, Jane is a very late scratching this morning. She has lost a voice. And given that this is an online event and speaking is a very big part of it, she didn't think she could add much value. So we've eliminated her and delegated some of the topics to other people, I was just told before. So that's there. Look, there's probably not too much in financial advice, but this is general advice only that we'll be talking about here. If anyone has any questions afterwards, we're more than happy to have a chat with you. We're trying to cover off on as broad a topic as we can to give you a guide, some helpful tips that you can take away and learn from it, improve yourself and your business. But there's no detailed personal advice in this at all. So normal disclaimer we have to put up. Sorry about that. Never before, I think, has it been as important with this topic, because we're really in a time where costs, wage costs, interest costs, utilities costs, they're rising all the time. So automate, eliminate, and delegate is about a process. It's about a mindset of how do we improve and optimize the efficiency of the way we do things. What does optimize efficiency mean? Well, it means that we're going to do things better. We're going to do things more efficiently, which means we're going to reduce time. But it also means there's a couple of other advantages of this too. If we're eliminating more menial tasks as we go through it, then isn't that going to make our life, our staff's life, more rewarding and free up more time to do more important and value-added things? So it's a very important topic, I think, and we've shared the topic around between Chris, Dale and myself. We will talk through a few of those, but I really cannot stress enough, it is a mindset that every time you look at something, you should be thinking, is there a better way to do this? And, eliminate might seem a bit of a harsh one, but we've had experiences in our office where something else had, developed over time, and there was technology had taken its place and it was doing it now, or we'd end up with duplicated tasks because of things. So it does mean that you have to do that bit of navel gazing every now and then and think, well, do we really need to do this anymore? Can we do it better? Can we delegate it to someone else more efficiently? So with that, I will just talk a little bit more about it is a process as well. And like any process, there's some key parts to process development and implementation. The first part of process development is obviously analysis. You don't just rush in and say, we're going to eliminate this. So you've got to have a little bit of analysis. And in Chris's subject, he'll talk a little bit more about that later on. When you've got a process, there's usually people involved in it. So involve the people that know it better. Don't ask me to do a tax return. You've got the most inefficient person. It's going to take longer and cost more. So you want the people that are hands-on doing it and can provide input. And it also gets buy-in from them in that process as well. So it's really important to involve the team of appropriate people. Then work through an action plan, develop some, quite often we're great believers in it doesn't have to be perfect all the time at the beginning. So put out an alpha or beta and trial it first to see if that's working, then make some tweaks to it that you will need and monitor the process. And all the way through this process, you're developing a process. So what the processes need to be, they need to be documented. So make sure that you document it. And the reason documentation is so important is if someone leaves and someone new needs to come in, they've got something to refer to. And it also means if everyone's doing things the same way, consistency breeds efficiency. So you've got everyone doing things the same way, more efficient and in a more timely manner. So document it, and probably with a little bit what I alluded before, but the old saying, we've always done it that way. Well, if you look 3 years down the track, what might have been the perfect way to do something back in 2015 may not be the perfect way to do it now, with technology changes which are at an ever increasing rate, or other changes, etc. So you do need to come back and revisit every now and then and look at ways that it might be tweaked to improve it again. So nothing set in stone. Look, without any further waffle from me, I will pass over to Dale Edwards, one of the partners, who will talk on the automation part. I will just give a quick heads up on that. We've been plagued by ChatGPT stuff at the moment. Automation is not just is not ChatGPT. Dale will be talking about a range of topics. So over to you, Dale. Thank you.
Thanks, Leon. Yes, so what is automation? Well, according to IBM, automation is the use of technology to perform tasks where human input is minimized. Leon and Chris know that I'm a big history buff, so I would actually argue that automation isn't a modern concept. It doesn't have to involve computers or AI technology. Throughout human history, we've sought for ways to make our lives easier via automation. So an early example of this is the use of wind and water wheels to create the mechanical force to grind grain. This process removes a large amount of the human input in transforming raw vegetables into bread. If you want a later example, you can look at the steam engine, which creates automation for many tasks. But one of the most important historic examples of automation, I would argue, is the printing press. The invention of the printing press removed the manual task of scribes having to copy out every word of books over and over for each copy of the book. This caused the first mass production of knowledge sharing in history, which is pretty massive, with a teeny-weeny side effect of facilitating the Reformation and fueling the religious wars of the 16th century that changed the religious and political landscape of the world. Wow, automation is powerful. So the AI tool ChatGPT is often cited these days as an example of automation when the topic's raised. But AI isn't quite the same as automation. So automation is about following orders and rules that humans have defined. These orders and rules will remain the same unless humans redefine those rules. On the other hand, AI is about mimicking human behavior and includes algorithms and machine learning, which will change over time without humans needing to intervene. So they're both useful tools, but today we're focusing on the automation and its positive impacts rather than the AI side for a business. So what are some ways that a business could automate time-consuming and tedious tasks? Well, firstly, you could look at using a single central database as a source of truth. The automation this achieves is that you don't have to update multiple different systems and have all the problems that are caused by out-of-date information from different out-of-date wrong databases being used. You can use automation to set up a trigger process when a new customer signs an order or an engagement, and they can then receive automated responses to welcome them and thank them as a new customer or a client. They can then be added to the customer newsletter mailing list. So you can have an automation to send when a client uploads new documents to your new secure document management system so that your team know that they need to action those documents. Automation can send an alert to a designated team member where there's a negative email received by members of the team from clients. You can use automation to create a series of documents from a template that's pre-filled with customer-specific information, all with the click of a button. That would save having to create each document one at a time and populate them manually. So you could also use automation to pull point-of-time reporting data from one system, manipulate and perform calculations on the data, and then save it in a different format in a different system. So there's so many things you can use automation for in a business, and they don't always have to be big major tasks. They're just boring little repetitive things. There's probably some automations available in software that you're already using in your own business. There's plenty of great automation tools available in Microsoft Office, for example. Plenty of things across Outlook, Word, Excel that can be used as speeding up your process via automation. And Microsoft even have a whole module within Office called Power Automate that's focused on automation. And all of these things are included in a normal Office subscription, so it's a lot more just than the Word and Excel and Outlook. So take a look at that one. Xero, which a lot of businesses use for their financial management and certainly is dear to us as accountants. It has a powerful API that allows other software developers to integrate data from Xero into their own software that they've developed. So what this means is that you can plug and play different software solutions into Xero and get a lot better functionality and run automations off that on top of your basic counting. Zapier is another useful automation tool that can be used where there's not strong native APIs between different technology products. So you can use Zapier to do what's called code-free programming to tell one software to do one thing and then flick it across to somewhere else in another bit of software and create automation in that fashion. Lots of industry software these days have automations built into it. So we're not talking about specific industries too much today and diving down into those holes, but in your own industry, you'll probably be aware of software that probably, if it's got ongoing recent development, will have automation functionality built in there. If I was to drill down for one specific product, I'll drill down for Xero as an example of some of Xero's automations. So in Xero, you can use reminders to send automated reminders out to customers who owe you money at fixed points in time. And those reminders can have acceleratingly firm wording in the reminder for each notification that goes out to them asking them if they could please pay you. So that helps with your debt collection process. You can also have automation from Xero if you have customers who make the same order at the same frequency, say same order each month. You can set up a recurring invoice so that it just creates itself each month and sends itself out to the client. Xero's bank reconciliation process allows you to use bank rules to tell Xero to always record particular transactions that meet particular criteria in a certain way of reconciling them so that you don't need to. I've already mentioned how Xero integrates with third-party software. There's a lot of payment platforms that integrate with Xero, and you can actually set them up so that when there's a payment received from one of those platforms, the third-party software will record a payment entry in your Xero file against the invoice that it relates to, so that when you go to reconcile, you can see that that's already been paid and ready to go. A new feature in Xero recently is e-invoicing, which is rolling out from a government level, and it provides near instant delivery of invoices straight into the recipient's accounting software, which is another form of automation there. So that's some examples about specific product automation that's available. I'd encourage you to look at any software that you're using now and see if there's automation there that you could use to streamline your business and save your people time. One thing we've found at Advivo is that technology is often released as a minimum viable product. That means that it says what it that means that it does what it says on the tin, but only for a very limited basic set of circumstances. What we've found is that when we look at technologies, we found them underdeveloped, so we've parked them, and then we review them again in a year or two and find that at that point they're actually fit for purpose and we're ready to be able to consider implementing them.
Very good tip, Dale.
Thanks, Leon. So as Leon mentioned, Jane McLeod from McLeod Consulting was due to join us today, and she's an expert at implementing new automations in businesses. So she sent her sincere apologies, as Leon has said, but she would be a good person to consult with if you're considering rolling out a large technology project in your business. As I spoke about with Jane last week, automation involves much more than just dropping some new technology in and hoping for the best. So she's said that the scoping stage of these sort of projects should be your largest and longest timeframe stage of any new automation project. The reason for this is that the more time that you spend exploring all of those options and looking at what might work and see what things could go wrong, gives you more time to develop strategies to overcome those before you roll out things live. The old saying is that failing to plan is planning to fail. People are so important in the automation process as well, and especially in the implementation of the whole setting up the automation, so to speak. So if you manage your people properly, that's so important, because people are afraid that automation and technology will mean that they lose their job. But the reality is often very different to that. It's so hard to find good people these days in businesses with the way the labour market is. You don't want to get rid of people, you just want to get them to have more time to do the things that are important in your business. So it's very important to communicate that to people when you're looking to put in new technology and automation, and you need to explain what the benefits are going to be to them and to the business so that they get buy-in. If you don't communicate that and manage it well at all stages through that process, you will end up with staff that are afraid. They might be obstructive to the project, and they could put the implementation at risk. So what I find is that your scoping and project team should include people from all different areas of your business. Don't just include the managers of different areas, but actually include people on your development team who work at the coalface. They're the ones who see what actually happens in your business, and they're the ones who can point out what problems you're going to have that management might well have missed. And that gives you the chance to come up with some solutions for those problems before you press the button. The other element of rolling out automation, as it is for any new process in a business, is training. So if you don't spend the time doing the training with your people, and not just around overcoming fear of change, but actually understanding what the new process is, then you'll press the button to go live on your new project and people won't know what to do with it. And that usually ends up in a disaster. But one thing, automation and all those sort of projects, they sound big and they sound scary, and sometimes they are if you're putting in a whole new piece of software, but they don't always have to be a massive project. So hypothetically, if you were going to turn on invoice reminders in Xero, for example, that's a pretty small project, but what you would want to do in that project is you'd want to ensure your team members who have any contact with your customers, that your team members know what's involved in this project. So you should be showing them samples of the messages that your customers are going to receive if they haven't paid yet, the different versions of it, get them to understand when these different messages are going to go out. If you've involved everyone in your team, then they'll be able to help you craft better worded messages to go out that'll resonate better with your customers. And if you've included the people who do your bank reconciliations, your bookkeeper, they'll be able to point out that the timing of your messages might not be quite right, because if they're not able to reconcile the invoice payments promptly against the invoices, then your customers are going to get reminder messages for invoices that they've already paid. And that's going to create extra work for your team dealing with those communications from clients who are cranky, and also create some reputational damage with those particular customers. So it's so important to make sure that your team members are involved in the process and know what's involved. You end up with a better outcome from the whole project. So that's even just on a simple little automation project like that. Change management is just so key. Automation is a really sexy topic, although my presentation might not have been very sexy, but it is one that draws people in when they look to think about improving their business and their processes. I would say don't rush to choose to automate just because it's a sexy topic. Automation and technology solutions are usually very time-consuming projects, and they can be very expensive in terms of dollars as well. And their failure rate is fairly high if you don't put enough effort and work into getting them to run right before you press the go live button. So make sure if you're looking at improving your business that you do look at your delegation and elimination as alternatives options. It's going to save you heaps of time and money if you find that there's a task that you can eliminate, as opposed to putting in a fancy, complex, expensive automation solution to do something that you don't need. So always consider those as well. I'll pass the conversation back to Leon now to talk about delegation, but please feel free to add any questions into the chat box if you've got any questions about automation, or if you have any short anecdotes you'd like to share about automation. We can't really open the floor to full stories about automation and project implementations today, because we just won't have time. But if there's something you'd like to share, please feel free to do so. Over to you, Leon.
Thanks, Dale. Actually, I've got a really quick, I'll try and make a really quick thing on automation. Many years ago, I had a client that was a furniture manufacturer. They moved premises, they had about 100 staff, and initially the comment was, well, we can move in the new factory, they'll put CNC machining all around, and they'd feed in panels of laminated chipboard in one end, and it would, I went out there and saw it, and it'd go right around the factory and come out the other end and be, a bedside table or tables or whatever it was. But it also, automation, improved timeliness rapidly. It cut out a lot of the errors which were human errors, and as a consequence, whilst his staff went from nearly 100 down to 60 immediately, his sales went up drastically because he was now getting his product out the door a lot quicker. And within 9 months, he was back over 120 staff and doubled the space of it had to take on more factory space again, and was producing nearly twice as much as he started at the beginning of the automation process. So it has lots of other incremental advantages as well too, but it's certainly eliminating error. Delegation is another one that, again, practice what you preach is what we always say. Delegation is another one of those. We have a poster in the office like we have automate, delegate, and eliminate. A different word for delegation is right people doing the right job. And we, obviously in our practice, it's quite structured. You've got different people at different charge out rates and doing different things. And having the right person doing the right job is the way that we keep our costs down for clients. But why doesn't delegation work all the time? Because, over the years, I've been to, and my career is probably 40 plus years now. And over that time, I would been to so many courses and webinars that have delegation in it. Works. I thought, geez, I've got the easy subject out of this topic because, delegation, everyone knows about it. I don't have to talk about it too much. But the problem with delegation is not that everyone doesn't know about it. We don't actually do it right, or we avoid it for different reasons. We had one really good staff at Advivo, and his comments were always, oh, but I can do it in I'm really efficient at this. I can do it in half the time, although I might be double the cost on half the time, so I shouldn't do it. And the other side of it is, if you ask, as I said before, ask me to do a tax return, it'd probably take 20 hours and it'd be wrong. So you need the right people with the right skills that are competent in doing it all the time. So that's really important for delegation. But what I think is there's another aspect besides the normal aspects of delegation that people talk about that's quite often overlooked. Delegation, and Natasha, if you could just put that slide up for a minute, if you wouldn't mind. Won't bore you with sharing the screen for a while, but when people talk about delegation, they often talk about these aspects of delegation. But there's one thing I think that is not on there, and there is two types of delegation. There's basic delegation of tasks to people that have the skills and expertise to action it straight away. So, Jessica's away, Leilani's away in the office today. So, Jessica, can you go to the mail, post office and get the mail and come back? Jessica's done the job 100 times before. She knows how to do it. She knows what to do. You don't need any more instructions. Very simple task to delegate. The more complex and more difficult the task, obviously more complex the delegation process is. There's also the aspect I like to just talk about for a minute is that if we didn't delegate tasks, how would people learn? So you'll have someone that might be good at a reasonably basic task, but it gets more complex or you're adding more to it. If you didn't delegate them tasks to do that was a little bit outside of their comfort zone, needed a little bit of upskilling, but you're going to support them in the delegation process with some of these things like setting clear objectives, plans, giving clear instructions, monitoring and check-in times, etc. They wouldn't learn anything. So you'd still be stuck doing some of the boring tasks that you don't like and tasks that you're outgrown, but you would never have a new set of people coming through with increased skills and development and growing your business. So delegation not only is a way of improving systems and processes and making sure that the right person does the right job, it's cost efficient, time efficient, the people at best at doing the job are doing it, but it's a way of training, coaching and developing people and building future sustainability in your business. So I ask you to think of it in that manner as a different way as well as just getting a job done. So I'll quickly run through this slide. Obviously, when you've got a task to do, you've got to choose the right task. So it's no good doing something that's way out of their skill set. Choose the appropriate person. And as I said, that could go someone that really is good at doing it, or it could be someone that you want to train and develop as well and use it as a training exercise as well. This is the part, and I'll put my hand up. I'm one of the people that is usually in a rush. My instructors might not be clear. So really good to sit down and give clear objectives, put some timelines, check-in points, plan out, offer support and assistance. If I'm not available, talk to Ben or someone like that might be the next thing. Make sure that they have a support there, that they're not going to feel there. If you're stuck at, this might be the difficult point when you're here. Maybe that's the time to come back to me. But set a clear plan, objectives and timeline and support basis to make sure that the person can do the job if it's not one of those simple tasks like go get the mail.
Can I just jump in real quick, please, Leon? Sorry to interrupt. Leon's affectionately known in the office as Hurricane Leon because he's often between tasks and he comes in and he throws things at different people to get them done and then he's gone again. But you've just raised an interesting point, Leon, in that when you're delegating down, people may not want to question the person. You're the managing partner. Often people are too scared to seek that clarification. And it's really important that people know that they are able to ask that question. And hey, if you don't understand, put your hand up. You've got to ask because it's so important that the instructions and the objectives and the desired outcomes are clear at the outset. It's a really, really good one to keep in mind. Sorry to interrupt, but I just thought that was worthwhile mentioning.
No, that's a really, really good point. And also understanding that people have different ways of communicating as well. So some people are auditory, some are visual, and some are kinesthetic, but if you can refer them to, here's some instructions on this, and ideally you've got a process they can follow or something like that. But Chris, you also touched on another point, which I hadn't got to, but you've mentioned it in yours. Delegation is not always delegating down. Most people think about it, you can push things down to delegate, but quite often, for relationship reasons or skills or experience, it's important to delegate up, and building that confidence in your team, like Chris said, to ask those questions and say, well, hang on, I need to know more about this. Or, the right person, you might need to be involved in part of it, and delegating up, if it's appropriate, is very much a thing that we should be conscious of. And a lot of people just get a little bit scared of that and fail to recognize that delegating up is the way to go. The monitoring is really important as well too, because you do have to monitor how they go. And we all know that you can say to people, come back and see me if you're having trouble or something like that. That's always not the best policy. It is good to check in if it's a bigger task, to make sure how they're going and check in with them, particularly when it's a learning and development type delegated task. Evaluate, review, make sure you have your time frame set that you're monitoring, and delegation works there. But what is the one thing that we've talked about in the whole delegation process, though, like many other things in business, is that delegation is a communication process. So it is really important that you think of it in that manner, that you understand who you're talking to, how to talk best, and what's the different things that need to be communicated along the way, and delegation will work well. So you'll train your people, you'll get things done more efficiently, more timely, more cost effectively, and delegation is another way that we can reduce our costs down if we use it appropriately for the right people doing the right job, and get people in working on the more value-added things that they can. They're probably the main points I really want to cover there. So upwards and downwards training and simple task orientated, but make sure you do it and communicate exceptionally well with timelines. And
can I just jump in again, please, Leon? Sorry, I know you're about to say to Liam, but I really just want to add one thing. Something that's worked really, really well for me. When it's all good and well delegating a task that people should know how to do, but something that's worked really well for me when delegating a specific project or a specific task that people may not have had experience with, just as you said, Leon, like just checking in to see how they're going. I'll say, like, go away, this is the outcome that we're looking for. Come back to me in a week or whatever, just with a rough mud map of the direction that you're heading in and how you're looking to do it. Like, don't leave it too long before that first check-in. I don't care if it's scratchings on the back of a napkin while you're at lunch or whatever. It doesn't need to be pretty. Don't waste time making it pretty. Just give me an indication of which direction you're going, and then that gives you the opportunity for that realignment in the early days. I find that works really well, and I teach my team to do the same.
Key part of it, yes, Chris. Yeah.
I'll be quiet now.
So I've sort of dealt with it at a conceptual point of view. Liam Toohey from Outsource to Us is one of our clients, and one that I have regular monthly meetings with. And Liam would like to talk briefly about how delegation has worked and the benefits it's added for them. So over to you, Liam.
Yeah, thanks, guys. As Leon said, Leon's been running the MSP program with myself and the other director for a number of years now. And one of our goals over the last 2 years has been to expand the business. And the only way that we were able to do that, and something that Leon was, pushing us to do, and giving us an incentive to do so, is to kind of get myself, I'm the senior web developer here, and getting myself off the tools and more into the face of the business and doing things that are going to be much more, my time is much more valuable spent in those areas. So one of the things was making sure that we had someone who I was able to delegate some of those tasks to. And just in the last 12 months, we've been able to put on a number of staff, like one in Australia in the office and one overseas. And now that I'm able to, with the help of the planning and getting everything right and getting those finances right, being able to now delegate some of those tasks that are just, normal sort of everyday stuff for me, now being able to delegate that to someone and that can do that for us. I've now been able to spend up to 20 hours a week on sales and business process and on being the face of the business, which is we've just seen an awesome increase, especially in the last 6 months since implementing that. And it's shown in our results in those MSP meetings. We've gotten a pat on the back from Leon the last couple of months, so we're doing all right. So that delegation it really has changed our business, and we've started to implement it in other areas, not just the web development, but also in the digital advertising and other areas of the business, which has made a huge impact. Yeah. Yep.
Thanks, Leon. And if
yeah.
I can say, without getting too personal about you, but it's allowed you to step up and take on some more challenging and new roles and get into what we call the higher value things. But it's also helped the other director move away from some roles that she would rather have moved away from. And it's got people it's a bit more about the right people doing the right job, and then maximising everyone's skills to the best level. And then you've also been able to delegate down. So there's a really good point in there. And one of my old partners many years ago used to say, if you want to do something, you've got to create a vacuum first. And I had to push Liam and that to get people in that they could delegate to first. And then once you've built that capacity, you can then delegate down, and the benefits have shown from it.
Yeah. And and as you said, Leon, like it's definitely that, the trust, like it is definitely a bit of a big step for companies, and for, for me personally, like our clients, we take it very seriously, the work that we do for them. So then being out, it's about taking that step back and really just taking the leap to be able to delegate those tasks that you would like to just kind of hold on to yourself. But so no, it's been a great step forward. Yeah.
Thanks for that, Liam. And I'm sure there's plenty of other people out there who've got similar stories they could share. But at this stage, I'll just pass on to Chris, who will talk about Eliminate. Thank you, Liam.
Thanks, Liam. Thank you, Leon. I've noticed that I always get the last slot, but I'm not convinced that's because people can't just drop off as I start to waffle on. But today I have the topic of elimination, and I'm actually really glad I got this topic because one of my favorite workshops that we offer clients is called a waste audit. And a waste audit is all about identifying waste and eliminating it from your business. And the reason why it's one of my favorites is because, I could almost say every time we do this, the amount of waste that's identified is just staggering, and is almost always a surprise to the client. What I thought I would do today is talk about the main tool that we use in that waste audit process, and I'll briefly run through how we do it, and I'll let you know how we do it. So as if you want to implement it yourself in your business, please feel free. The core tool that we use is called 7 Wastes. It is not a new tool. It's not reinventing the wheel. It's not particularly scientific either, but it is extremely effective in identifying the waste that can creep into organizations or to businesses over time. Leon, you mentioned before, technology changes, people change. So you may have a business that's humming along beautifully one year, 12 months down the track, all of a sudden your profit's not what it used to be. And you go, well, hang on, why is this? Honestly, a waste audit is designed to identify those areas. So look, I'll quickly run through how it works. There's, excuse me, there's essentially 7 areas of waste that we focus on. I'll see them up on the screen there. So what I'll get people to do, and you're lucky that that screen's just come up now because I was going to be watching people's cameras and now I can't see them. What I'll get you to do is pick up a pen or just jump on your keyboard and type down the word overproduction. Okay, that's the first area that we're going to focus on. Now, overproduction is doing something in excess of what's required. So if we're in a service industry, it's over-servicing clients. Simple. Over-designing for Liam, the designing side of things for web design and stuff. Over-interviewing is another one, which is pertinent because everyone's always saying to hire slow, fire fast. But there is such a thing as being too slow to hire, especially in today's labour market. So another example, producing a product before there's a guarantee of sales on it. Like there's lots of examples of overproduction. But what I'd like you to do, you've written down that word. Now, the way this tool works is just write down, it doesn't have to be now, but this is just an indication of how it works. Just jot down 3 or 4 examples next to it of where you think that overproduction is occurring within your business. And typically when we do these workshops, we like to get a bit more of the team involved as well, because if you do this workshop with your team, you're getting input, as Dale said before, you're getting input from those different levels within your business. So where one person identifies waste may be completely different to where a different role identifies waste, but it may have a significant impact on their job and the business ultimately. So once you've got those examples down beside overproduction, the next step is about assigning a cost to those. Just have a think about what it's actually costing you to have that waste in your business. So we're essentially identifying the savings that we may be able to recognize if we remove that waste. Admittedly, sometimes it's a bit hard to actually put a dollar value on it, and you'll see that as we get later through the wastes. But, and honestly, that's fine. Just write high, medium, or low, and we're just talking about the biggest bang for buck here. Then next to that, again, in the final column, I just want you to give it a score called ease of doing. Again, sorry, not particularly scientific, but keep it simple. Ease of doing, give it a ranking from 1 to 10, 10 being the easiest, 1 being really, really difficult to do. Maybe it's relying on too many other systems or it'll affect too many things if we change it. That is the nuts and bolts of how this tool is going to work. Once you've done that with overproduction, we move on to the next area. The next area is waiting. Now, in the chat box, where did we think that waiting occurs in your business? Just have a think, jot down a couple of points. Understand there may be reluctance to share private information, which is fine. I'll give away the answer anyway. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Waiting for clients' website content. Client queries is a big one for us. Often we'll get queries to clients and we're waiting for the queries to come back before we can keep going with it. Look, the short answer to this question is everywhere. Waiting occurs everywhere in a business. If you think of the time when you've received the go-ahead for a job or when you've been given a job, and you capture all the minutes from that point in time to when the job's been delivered, the client's happy with it, you've had the sign-off, you've been paid, it's cleared in the bank, you've had your post-action review, and the job's closed. You add up all those hundreds or thousands of minutes in that time frame, and then take a step back and think, right, now during that time, how many minutes were actually spent adding value to the process? And I kid you not, you'll find that most of the time it'll be under 5%. Most of the time it's closer to 1%, which is ridiculous. And if you actually think about how that works in your business, that again, that's a significant, there's often many examples of areas where you can reduce waiting within a business, which can result in significant savings. So again, you've got those points down the side, just jot down, like I said, jot down the dollar value of what you think it would be to remove those, to recognize those savings or remove that waste, and an ease of doing next to it. The third waste is transport. This is about external transport. So we're talking about transport of the product or the service. So if it's a service, if you're a consultant, if you're in the service industry, it might be you who's the service. So are you being efficient in where you move and how you move? Online meetings is a big one that's obviously everyone's on board with these days. Most people, there's still a need for in-person. I understand that, but think of a few examples there for yourself. The next area is inappropriate processing. And Leon touched on this before. This is about right person, right job. Using a sledgehammer to crack a nut. That's how I like to refer to this one. It's a typical example is if we move it to a manufacturing side of things, it can be the right machine to do a job. There's no point, and software is another example of this too. You often see people spending thousands and thousands of dollars on a machine or on a piece of software, but they only utilize 10% of what it can actually do. And that may not necessarily be from lack of knowledge. It might be because they only need 10%. So it's a fine line between stifling the ability to grow and allocating resources to where it's most required. So there could be wastage sitting there that's just not being utilized. And if you remove that wastage, then it's all going to increase profitability. The next area is inventory. And inventory is a really big one because it's similar to waiting. When you think about inventory, think of it as, yes, there's your, the one that everybody knows, there's your finished goods, there's your raw materials. If you're in services, it might be work in progress. Also include in inventory things anywhere in your organization where value is being stored. So it would include your accounts that are waiting to be paid. And the short of it is you need to get rid of it. If you can keep it to an absolute minimum, get rid of any excess, keep it to a minimum, that's a big area where waste can be recognized and removed. Next one isn't too bad. Next one's motion, which is similar to transport, but it's more about ergonomics. It's more about the efficiency of a work environment. And again, Dale touched on this one, well, one of my examples of this one before, which is the ease of performing tasks and gathering information. So Dale mentioned perhaps a document manager. Document manager, which can automatically store the files, automatically captures emails, files the attachments separately. So you're not searching through an inbox or searching through folders to try to find a file. It just all adds time on that it takes to do a particular job. So that's an example. Again, more examples of areas where you can identify waste. And they're going to be different for everybody, different types of organizations, and also for every business, they're going to be different. Granted, some will overlap. Now, the seventh area, I won't say last, and I'll tell you why in a moment. The seventh area is defects. Defects is a really, really big one as well. Sorry, there's so many of these that are big, but defects, mistakes, defects and mistakes, right? And where do they happen in business? Everywhere. Everywhere. How many people hate rework? I hate rework because it's a waste of time. It's a waste of money. Simple things such as the mistyping, the misspelling of a name in a contract, misspelling of a name in a document. The time and cost to do rework is just horrendous. And I really, it's inevitable that there's going to be mistakes, but if you can get the right systems and the right processes in place, Leon was talking about instructions. If you can get the right instructions to happen, it all helps to minimize mistakes and which minimizes rework. Training, Dale, thank you. Yes, bang on. Sorry, I get passionate about this, which is why they put me on last. So yeah, imagine the dollars that you could save in your business if you were to be able to eliminate rework altogether. Now, the reason I said that it may not be the last waste is because there has been some discussion in recent years, for the last 5 years or so, that there is an eighth waste, which is underutilized talent or creativity. And this comes back to sharing ideas between your team. And that's why I said right at the start, it's a good idea to get your team involved with this, because different people have different suggestions at different levels of your business. And you'll find that there'll be good ones and bad ones, and they'll all be able to have an impact to reducing waste. So that's essentially it from the eliminate side of things. I tried to cram as much as I could into the short time, but that tool personally I find is really, really good, and just is really helpful for identifying significant savings for businesses. And as Leon said too, it's not just a static point in time, do this tool, put it in the drawer, call it done. Once you've done it, it's a good idea to set it as a routine thing that you do with your team once a year, once every 2 years. Have it as on a rotating cycle so that it does get revisited, because things change over time. And before you know it, waste creeps in and you're just not aware of it until someone shines a spotlight on it. And then all of a sudden you're able to increase profitability again.
Chris,
So,
if I could chime in there too,
yeah,
like
please.
that example you had there, the manufacturing industry quite a while ago introduced just in time, and just in time was there to try and improve that timeliness and everything like that. But what you were talking about is reviewing and monitoring it, because if just in time doesn't work, you get something out, then just about every one of those areas that you had listed there will fall apart. You'll end up with too much stock. You'll have extra double processing. People are rushing. You'll probably have errors. So that coming back and reviewing it is absolutely essential sort of thing. And getting open feedback from people to say this is what's going on, and having clear communication lines and people collaborating and talking openly.
Bang on, Leon. Bang on. I should say too, and I touched on it briefly, there's a balance. You're not trying to get rid of capacity. You do want to have a little bit of excess capacity, because you don't want to be at a point where, as Leon said, if one thing falls over, you don't want it to domino down the entire line. So you do want to have a little bit of capacity. It's not about removing capacity. It's just about removing wasted capacity. And that's what's important to focus on. The idea of ranking with that ease of doing, by the way, in the dollars, is once you've got that list with your team, take a step back and just pick your top three. Pick the top three that give you the biggest bang for buck, that are the easiest to do, because you're going to be looking at a list of things and you're just going to be scratching your head going, wow, I had no idea that there were so many areas that we could actually make a difference. So just pick the top three, get cracking on those ones, and you've already identified what the savings are going to be. So get cracking on them as a project, set yourself a time frame, check back in to see how things are going, delegate it, get other people involved. Anyway, that's it from me. If we can put the notes in there for the actual waste in the chat, or we can send them around afterwards anyway. If anybody wants to do it in their own business, by all means, feel free. If you want some pointers, just pick up the phone, give us a buzz. Happy to help wherever we can. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. Look, we do have, with because Jane didn't turn up, we have a little bit of time up our sleeve than we'd actually scheduled for. Has anyone else got any examples that they would like to share with your fellow cohorts on here today that they think would be beneficial to pass on to other people?
So many.
All right. Well, thank you very much for that. But look, the things that we do know is that all of these, we've covered three areas, and all of them work together, and the team needs to work together to make this work. So it is that communication, but these processes, as I said at the beginning, is about adopting a mindset. Every time you pick something up, you need to think, is there a way we can do this better? I have a saying I often say with staff: if you're sitting there and the wheels are spinning and you're stuck, there's something wrong. Don't let that go on for more than 10 minutes without putting your hand up and asking for help. And those little triggers then should be a point that you say, oh, hang on, well, why is this happening? Either it's quite often, I think Dale made the comment there, training can be the solution for a lot of those things. But as we said, just in time could fall over, or someone else could do something. If you've got constant breakdowns, the manufacturing industry, there is so many things that you see there that go wrong. If you've got machinery with breakdowns and stuff like that. So you've got to eliminate the breakdowns. You've got different ways. We have overproduction in our office all the time. We're accountants, we're not auditors. We don't need to check every invoice you've got. There's every one of you could probably think about 10 or so things on what Chris said about overproduction. Do we really need to do these things? Is it essential? Is it and is it adding value? That's the other thing. Does the client get value out of this? We've had things. Liam mentioned our monthly service report. We took some pages out of that in our standard report the other week, which some of you will have seen, because we didn't think they were adding value. So why have stuff in there that's going to waste time and not add value? And we put more stuff in there that we thought would add value. So it's really important that you actually put the context of this, that does it save time? Does it save cost? Is it rewarding the work does it doing? And is it adding value? Which is really important. Other than that, I think we're probably going to wrap up a little bit early today, unfortunately due to Jane's time. I hope you've got some takeaways out of what we've covered today. Chris can send out in what goes out if anyone wants more instructions on the 7 waste. It is quite simple, or we can help with that. As I said, eliminate is not shooting the messenger or the staff member that's not doing something. It's training them and developing them and delegating to the right person.
No Daleks around here, Leon. Exterminate.
And with all of these, I hope you get some you've got some value out of that. Just a reminder that coming up is 30 June. So we've got some tips coming out on what we can do to help you with 30 of June coming up. And it's always a fun time for us and fun time for you, but there's certain things that do need to be done before 30 June, and some other things will be done after 30 June. But if you don't get them done in the right time before 30 June, there can be consequences that aren't good. So on that note, I will thank you all for your attendance. Thank you, Chris, Dale, Liam, Natasha, for organising. Enjoy the rest of the day. Have a good week, and we'll see you next Business Booster event. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you all.